The grand doors of the Lawson estate creaked open as I stepped inside, my heels clicking against the polished marble floors. The scent of expensive cigars and aged whiskey lingered in the air, remnants of another one of Grant Lawson's indulgent business gatherings. Grant, billionaire, real estate mogul, and the man who had just humiliated me in front of a room full of executives and socialites. He had laughed mockingly, as if I were nothing more than a background figure in his world. To him, I was a mere personal assistant, a woman who fetched his coffee, organized his schedule, and catered to his every whim. To me, he was a thief. Elena! His voice boomed from across the room, thick with entitlement. I turned slowly, my expression carefully neutral. Grant Lawson stood by the grand fireplace, a glass of whiskey swirling lazily in his hand. His dark suit was unbuttoned, the tie slightly askew, a casual display of power. "Come here," he commanded, his voice dripping with impatience. "I need you to fix this damn report. Apparently, you're incapable of following simple instructions." A few of his guests smirked, whispering among themselves. I felt their eyes on me, waiting to see if I would crumble under his condescending tone. But I wouldn't. Not today. I approached, my hands clasped behind my back. "Of course, Mr. Lawson," I replied, my voice smooth. "I'll correct it right away." His lips curled in satisfaction as if my compliance confirmed his dominance. "Good," he muttered, waving me off. I turned on my heel, heading toward my office on the far side of the estate. The moment I was out of sight, I clenched my fists. My heart pounded, not with humiliation, but with anticipation. Let him bask in his imagined power. He had no idea that, within 24 hours, everything he owned, this estate, his empire, his legacy, would belong to me. Because this mansion? It wasn't his. Not truly. It was mine. The past he forgot. The future I remembered. The Lawson estate had belonged to my family for generations. My parents, Andrew and Sophia Devereaux, had poured their hearts into building a legacy, a business empire centered around real estate investments. I had spent my childhood in this very house, running through the halls, sitting by the grand piano as my mother played, listening to my father talk about how this estate would always be our family's heart. Until it was stolen. Grant Lawson had once been my father's trusted business partner. A man who smiled over expensive dinners, shook hands in elegant boardrooms, and promised loyalty. But beneath that charming exterior was a predator. When my parents died in a tragic car accident, I was still in college, grieving and overwhelmed. It was then that Grant made his move. He manipulated legal loopholes, manufactured debts that never existed, and swooped in under the pretense of helping me manage the business. In reality, he systematically stripped me of everything. I was young, naive, and vulnerable. Exactly the type of person Grant thrived on exploiting. Within a year, I had lost everything. Everything except my name. And my patience. The long game begins. I didn't beg. I didn't fight him in court. I would have lost. Instead, I waited. I played the role he expected me to play. The desperate former heiress, grateful for his scraps. When he offered me a position as his personal assistant, I accepted without hesitation. He thought it was a final humiliation, a reminder that I was nothing without him. But I wasn't here to serve him. I was here to dismantle him from the inside. For 6 years, I played the part perfectly. I scheduled his meetings, took notes during business calls, and managed his finances. I was invisible, a shadow moving behind him, carefully observing every deal, every financial misstep, every hidden transaction he assumed no one was paying attention to. And most importantly, I learned his weaknesses. Grant was arrogant. He cut corners, thinking his power made him invincible. He took massive financial risks, secured loans using the estate as collateral, and never bothered to read the fine print of his own agreements. He never realized that, over time, I had slowly begun acquiring his debts. Piece by piece. By last month, I had purchased every single one. He didn't own the Lawson estate anymore. I did. And tomorrow morning, he would learn the truth. The night before the fall. As I sat in my small office, once my childhood bedroom, I carefully laid out the final documents. The official transfer of ownership was complete. Grant's name was erased from the deed. The house, the business, the assets, all legally mine. The only thing left to do was tell him. But not yet. I wanted him to enjoy his last night in luxury, to sip his overpriced whiskey, to believe he was untouchable. Because tomorrow when he woke up, everything would be gone. A knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. It was David, one of Grant's financial advisors, a man who, unlike his employer, had enough sense to recognize the tide was turning. "You ready for this?" he asked, stepping inside. I smiled, sliding the final document into a folder. "More than ready." David exhaled, shaking his head in admiration. He never saw it coming. He never looked, I corrected. That was his first mistake. And the second? I stood, smoothing the front of my blouse, underestimating me. One last order, one last laugh. The following morning, I stood in the grand dining hall, watching Grant eat his breakfast. He was oblivious, scrolling through his phone, sipping his coffee, completely unaware that his world was about to collapse. "Elena?" he called, not bothering to look up. "Make sure my schedule is cleared for tomorrow. I'm flying to the Bahamas." I smirked. "Actually, Mr. Lawson, I have something for you first." I placed an envelope in front of him. He barely glanced at it. "What's this?" I took a step back, folding my arms. "I suggest you read it." Grant sighed, finally setting his phone down to humor me. He unfolded the letter, eyes scanning the words, and then he froze. His expression twisted from casual annoyance to confusion, then disbelief, then fury. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, standing so abruptly that his chair scraped against the floor. "That," I said, my voice steady, "is an official eviction notice. As of this morning, I own the Lawson estate. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises." He blinked, then let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. "You're joking," I smiled. "Do I look like I'm joking?" Grant scanned the document again, his hands trembling. "This is impossible. I own this house. This is my company." "Correction," I said, enjoying the moment. "It was your house, and it was your company. But you gambled too much, signed away too many assets, and left yourself wide open. You never realized who was buying your debts." Grant's face turned pale. "You didn't," he whispered. "Oh, but I did," I confirmed. "And now, Mr. Lawson, I think it's time you packed your things." For the first time in his life, Grant Lawson had nothing to say, and for the first time in mine, I had everything. Grant Lawson had built his empire on arrogance. He lived in luxury, surrounded by people who told him exactly what he wanted to hear. He had spent years believing he was untouchable, that his power was absolute. He was about to learn how wrong he was. As I stood in the grand dining hall of the Lawson estate, watching the color drain from his face, I felt a satisfaction unlike anything before. Grant clutched the eviction notice in his trembling hands, his jaw tightening as he skimmed the words over and over, as if sheer willpower could rewrite them. This has to be a mistake," he stammered. "There's no way." "No mistake," I interrupted, keeping my tone cool. "You signed the contracts, you took the loans, you put this estate up as collateral, and you lost it all." Grant's breathing turned shallow, his fingers curling around the paper so tightly the edges crumpled. He was struggling to process reality. For years, he had believed he owned this estate, my estate. But the truth was, he had only been living here on borrowed time, and that time had run out. "Who sold the debt to you?" he demanded, his voice rising in desperation. "Which bank? Which firm? Who the hell let you do this?" I smiled. "You did." His eyes snapped to mine, fury flickering beneath the surface. "What?" "You never read your own contracts, Grant," I said smoothly. "You assumed you could always buy your way out, that no one would ever outmaneuver you. But I've been planning this for years. I watched you, studied you, waited for the moment you made the wrong bet." I tilted my head. "And you did, over and over again." His hands clenched into fists. "You tricked me," he spat. I let out a soft chuckle. "No, Grant, you tricked yourself." The weight of a name. For the first time since he had taken over this estate, Grant Lawson was powerless. I could see the thoughts racing through his mind. He was trying to find a loophole, a way to talk himself out of this. That was the thing about men like Grant. They never believed consequences would catch up to them. But this time, there was no escape. "You have 24 hours to vacate," I reminded him. "After that, I'll have security escort you out." He exhaled sharply, dragging a hand through his perfectly styled hair, now disheveled with stress. His signature arrogance was slipping, replaced by something foreign, panic. "You think this makes you powerful?" he sneered. "That taking my house makes you better than me?" I leaned in slightly. "No, Grant. This was never yours to begin with. You stole it, and now I'm taking it back." He scoffed, shaking his head. "You're insane. No court will uphold this." Oh, but they already have, I interrupted, enjoying the way his bravado cracked further. All legal proceedings are finalized. This house, this business, your assets tied to it, all gone, and you did it to yourself. His breathing quickened. You don't get it, Elena. The Lawson name. I rolled my eyes. The Lawson name means nothing now, I cut in. You spent years treating people like they were disposable, stepping on anyone you saw as beneath you. But now, I smiled, no one is coming to save you. Grant's nostrils flared. I made this empire, he snarled. No, I said, my voice firm. You inherited it, and you lost it. The collapse begins. Grant didn't argue after that. Not because he accepted his fate, but because he was too busy scrambling. He stormed out of the dining hall, his phone already in hand, dialing his lawyer, his financial advisors, anyone he thought could fix this. No one answered. I had made sure of that. Over the past 6 months, I had been quietly buying out Grant's influence. His most trusted allies? Gone. His lawyers? Under contract with other firms. His financial team? Already aware that their client was a sinking ship. He was alone, and he knew it. I followed him as he stormed through the estate, barking orders at the staff, demanding answers from anyone who would listen. But his employees had already heard the whispers. The mighty Grant Lawson had fallen. When he reached his office, he slammed the door shut behind him. I let him have his moment. Let him stare at his walls full of framed business awards. Let him sit at his grand mahogany desk for the last time. Let him process that everything he had built on deception was crumbling. I waited outside, leaning casually against the doorframe. 15 minutes later, he emerged. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. He knew. It's over, I said simply. Grant swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally muttered, "What do you want?" I raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" "You won," he ground out, fists clenched. "You took everything. Fine, you got what you wanted. But you could have left me something." "Like you left me something?" I asked, cutting him off. "Like you left me my home, my family's business, my dignity?" Grant stiffened. I took a step closer. "I'm not here to negotiate, Grant. There's nothing you have that I want." Silence stretched between us. For the first time in his life, he had nothing left to bargain with. And that was when I saw it. Defeat. Grant exhaled, dragging a hand down his face. "This isn't over," he muttered. I smirked. "Oh, Grant, it was over the moment you underestimated me." The fall of a titan. By nightfall, the news had spread. Grant Lawson, once a billionaire mogul, was officially bankrupt. Headlines flashed across business networks. Lawson empire collapses. Heir evicted from family estate. How arrogance cost Grant Lawson everything. Former assistant takes control. Elena Devereaux reclaims family business. The city was abuzz with speculation. How had the mighty fallen so fast? Who had orchestrated it? And most importantly, what would happen to Grant now? I already knew. Without his estate, without his influence, he was just another failed businessman, drowning in debt. I stood on the balcony that night, sipping a glass of wine, watching the lights of the city twinkle in the distance. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. But I wasn't done yet. Because while Grant was scrambling to salvage what little he had left, I was already preparing my next move. This wasn't just about reclaiming what was mine. This was about ensuring Grant Lawson never rose again. And tomorrow, he'd find out just how much further he had to fall. The first 24 hours after Grant's downfall were silent. Too silent. I expected him to lash out, to fight, to scream. Instead, he disappeared. The media was buzzing about his eviction, about how the powerful and untouchable Grant Lawson had been stripped of his empire overnight. Reporters camped outside his penthouse, waiting for a statement. His so-called friends, the same ones who had laughed at his crude jokes while I cleaned up after his parties, were nowhere to be found. Grant was unraveling, and I could feel it. I wasn't foolish enough to think he would accept defeat. Men like him never did. He would claw and scratch to get back what he lost. He would play victim, weave some pitiful tale of betrayal, claim that I had manipulated my way into power. But the difference between us? I didn't need lies. I had truth. The last card he had left. It wasn't until the second night that I heard from him. I was sitting in the study, my study now, going through financial documents when my phone rang. His name flashed on the screen. I let it ring. Once, twice, then finally I answered. "Elena." His voice was rough, hoarse, like he hadn't slept. "We need to talk." I leaned back in my chair, swirling my wine glass lazily. Do we? You know we do. I let the silence stretch just to make him squirm. Finally, I sighed. Fine, where? He hesitated. The penthouse. I smirked. The same penthouse you swore you'd never set foot in again because, and I quote, only second-rate executives live in apartments? A pause. Just come. A man on the edge. The doorman recognized me immediately. I walked through the sleek marble lobby, my heels clicking against the pristine floors. Grant's penthouse was the last thing he had left, and even that wouldn't be his for much longer. I had looked into his assets. The mortgage payments were overdue. His accounts had been frozen. The only thing keeping him afloat was the false hope that he could fix this. When he opened the door, I almost didn't recognize him. The man who always prided himself on looking like power itself now stood before me in a wrinkled button-up, his hair disheveled, his eyes rimmed with exhaustion. He had aged years in just days. You look terrible, I mused, stepping inside. Grant scowled, but didn't take the bait. Sit, he said instead, gesturing to the couch. I didn't. Say what you need to say, Grant. I have better things to do. His jaw tightened. I want my company back. I blinked, then laughed. A full, genuine laugh. You're serious? He exhaled sharply. Look, I know what I did to you. You stole my home, I cut in coldly. You humiliated me, treated me like I was nothing. And now you have the audacity to think I'd give you anything? His fingers curled into fists. I built that company, Elena. No, you inherited it. His nostrils flared. And you think you deserve it? I tilted my head. More than you do. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. I can fix this. We can make a deal. I crossed my arms. You still think money can fix everything, don't you? He scoffed. That's rich coming from you. You didn't win through hard work, Elena. You played the system. I stepped closer, my voice dropping. No, Grant. I beat the system. I outmaneuvered you. You lost because you were arrogant enough to think no one could ever take you down. His face hardened. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I smiled. You have no idea. The final blow, I turned to leave. Elena, Grant called after me. Wait. I paused, just at the door. His voice was quieter now, almost desperate. I don't have anywhere else to go. I turned my head slightly. Not my problem. He swallowed hard. I was wrong. I faced him fully now, arms crossed. About? His eyes darted away. He was struggling with the words. Finally, he sighed. About you. I underestimated you. I arched a brow. Flattery won't save you. I know. I waited. I don't expect forgiveness, he admitted. He exhaled, rubbing his face. I don't know what to do. For the first time, there was no manipulation in his voice, no bravado, just a broken man lost in his own downfall. And for the first time, I felt nothing. No sympathy. No anger. Just indifference. I stepped forward, meeting his gaze. Now you know how it feels. Then, without another word, I walked out. Grant Lawson had spent his life believing he was invincible. Now, he was just another man who had lost everything. And I was just getting started. The news broke the next morning. Grant Lawson officially removed as CEO amid financial scandal. It was all over the business networks, the finance blogs, even mainstream media. The golden boy of the corporate world had fallen, and people couldn't get enough of it. I watched it unfold from the comfort of my office, the one that had once been his. Sitting behind the sleek mahogany desk, I sipped my coffee and scrolled through the endless articles dissecting his downfall. The board of directors votes unanimously to remove Lawson. Former CEO accused of mishandling company funds. Grant Lawson's rapid decline, a lesson in arrogance. That one was my favorite. His former allies were jumping ship, acting as if they had never supported him in the first place. Investors were pulling their money, scrambling to distance themselves from the mess he had left behind. And his so-called friends? They weren't answering his calls. He was alone. Exactly where he had left me years ago. A call he didn't expect. The phone on my desk buzzed. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Miss Carter, there's a call for you, from Grant Lawson. I smirked. Predictable. Put him through. A moment later, his voice came through the line. Elena. Grant, I said smoothly, leaning back in my chair. To what do I owe the pleasure? You already know, he said, his tone tight. Do I? He exhaled sharply. Cut the act. You wanted me out? You got what you wanted. But this? Dragging my name through the mud? Was that necessary? I chuckled, twirling my pen between my fingers. Oh, Grant, this isn't about me. This is about you. Your own actions did this. Your arrogance, your incompetence. I just let nature take its course. He was silent for a moment. Then, you don't have to do this. I raised an eyebrow. Do what exactly? Let me rot. I let that sit between us for a second before answering. I don't have to, Grant. You did that all on your own. His voice dropped. Elena, you've won. You don't need to keep punishing me. A small, satisfied smile curled at my lips. Oh, Grant, this was never about punishing you. Then what is this about? He snapped, frustration creeping into his tone. I paused, considering. Then, with measured calm, I said, restoration. Silence. You took everything from me, I continued. My home, my dignity, my career, and for years you got away with it. But now I have everything. And you have nothing. His breathing was uneven. I could almost hear him gripping the phone tighter. You enjoy this, don't you? He muttered. Immensely. His final plea. There was another long silence. Then his voice softened. Elena, I was wrong. I blinked, momentarily thrown off by the sincerity in his tone. He sighed heavily. I was an idiot. A selfish, blind idiot. And I don't expect you to forgive me, but... He hesitated. I need your help. I tilted my head, intrigued. Help? I have nothing left, he admitted. The company's gone. My reputation's in ruins. I can't even get a meeting with an investor. No one trusts me. No one's willing to give me a second chance. I didn't respond. I just let him talk. You have influence now, he continued. You have power. You could fix this. You could make one call and put me back in the game. I laughed softly. You really think I'd do that? His voice was raw. I don't know, but I have to ask. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. Then finally I said no. Elena, I'm not your safety net, Grant. He swallowed. I get that. But you don't get anything, I interrupted, my voice cool and steady. If you did, you wouldn't be calling me right now. You'd be figuring out how to clean up your own mess. Instead, you're still looking for someone to fix it for you. His breath hitched slightly. So that's it? That's it? Another pause. Then, almost bitterly, he said, You're colder than I remember. I smiled. No, Grant, I'm just done. Then I hung up, and for the first time in years, I felt free. The news cycle moved fast, but Grant's downfall? It stuck. The headlines didn't just fade, they evolved. From CEO to outcast, the unraveling of Grant Lawson. Disgraced former executive faces potential legal trouble. No allies left, how one man's arrogance led to his own undoing. Every article was another nail in his professional coffin. Investors had abandoned him. His former board members were publicly distancing themselves. His assets were dwindling, and the whispers of lawsuits were growing louder. For years, Grant had built his world on power, manipulation, and control. And now, as that world crumbled, he was learning what it felt like to be powerless. And I was just getting started. A face I never expected to see. It was a quiet afternoon when my assistant knocked on my office door. Miss Carter, she said cautiously. You have a visitor. He didn't have an appointment, I sighed. Who? She hesitated. Grant Lawson. I straightened. So he finally decided to show up. I glanced at my schedule, then back at her. Send him in. A few seconds later, he stepped into my office. And for the first time, I saw him as he truly was. Not the invincible CEO. Not the arrogant mastermind. Not the man who had once controlled everything in my life. No. Grant Lawson looked small. His once perfectly tailored suits now seemed slightly off, like they no longer fit him the way they used to. His eyes, usually sharp and calculating, were dull, sunken. His jaw was tense, but there was no real fight left in it. I leaned back in my chair, observing him. You look terrible, Grant. He didn't flinch. You look powerful. I smiled. I am. He let out a slow breath. I need your help. The last desperate deal. I tilted my head. Do you? His jaw clenched. I don't expect pity, Elena. I know I don't deserve it, but I also know you. He leaned forward, bracing his hands on my desk. You're not just about revenge. You're about winning. I chuckled. And what exactly do you think I haven't won yet? Grant exhaled. I know you had a hand in my downfall. Your downfall was a long time coming, I corrected. I just made sure the right people noticed. He swallowed hard. Fine. I messed up. I let my greed, my pride, everything get the best of me. And I lost. But you and I both know I have value. Connections, experience. I can still be useful. I arched an eyebrow. Useful? To me? His throat bobbed. Yes. I laughed softly, shaking my head. You still don't get it, do you, Grant? You're not valuable anymore. Not to investors, not to your company, and definitely not to me. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration creeping into his voice. So that's it? You just watch me crash and burn? I shrugged. I don't have to watch, Grant. You're doing a great job of that all on your own. His fists clenched. I can rebuild. I can find a way back. Can you? I interrupted, leaning forward. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like every door is closed to you. Every bridge, burned. Every connection, gone. He said nothing. You're drowning, I continued. And I'm not throwing you a lifeline. His breathing was uneven now. I can make this right, he insisted. If you just... I held up a hand. Stop. He blinked. I exhaled, standing up and walking around my desk until I was directly in front of him. You had years to do the right thing, Grant, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Years to fix what you broke, but you didn't. And now you want me to save you? His lips parted, but no words came out. I shook my head. No. A long silence stretched between us. You really hate me that much? He asked finally. I considered that. No, I admitted. I don't hate you, Grant. I just don't care anymore. His entire body tensed because that was worse than hatred. Closing the door for good, I stepped back, giving him space to process what I had just said. He ran a hand over his face, exhaling sharply. So that's it? I nodded. That's it. He lingered for a second longer, like he wanted to argue, like he thought there was still a sliver of a chance. But there wasn't. Finally, he gave a stiff nod. I hope you enjoy this, he muttered. Whatever this is. I smiled. Oh, I will. Without another word, he turned and walked out of my office, and this time, I knew. He wasn't coming back. It was a crisp autumn morning when I stepped onto the balcony of my estate, the golden leaves swirling in the breeze, the sky painted in streaks of soft amber. The world had never felt so still, so utterly perfect. The mansion that had once belonged to the man who had betrayed me was now mine, fully and completely. And Grant Lawson? He was nothing but a fading echo. I took a slow sip of my coffee, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. It had been 2 weeks since he had stood in my office, begging, yes, begging for my help. 2 weeks since I had watched him walk out of my life, defeated and broken, and I had not looked back. But as I scrolled through my phone that morning, a new headline caught my attention. Lawson Industries files for bankruptcy amid investor exodus. I smirked. Well, that didn't take long. The world was finally seeing Grant for who he really was. An entitled fraud, a man who built an empire on manipulation and arrogance, never thinking it could all come crashing down. But it had. A meeting with the past. Later that afternoon, my assistant knocked on the study door. Miss Carter, there's someone asking to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but... She hesitated. I glanced up from my paperwork, raising an eyebrow. Who? Her lips parted, but she seemed uncertain whether she should say it aloud. Grant Lawson. Ah. I set down my pen, considering it. He had nothing left. No company, no fortune, no power. And yet here he was, still knocking at my door. I could have refused to see him. Could have let my assistant tell him to leave, to never show his face here again. But instead I nodded. Send him in. A few moments later, Grant stepped inside. And what I saw wasn't the Grant I once knew. Gone was the man with the perfectly tailored suits and air of smug confidence. The Grant standing before me now looked lost. His expensive clothes no longer held the sharpness of power. They hung on his frame, slightly disheveled, as if he had worn them for days without care. His hair, always styled to perfection, was now an unruly mess, and his eyes, hollow. He had aged 10 years in just 2 weeks. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my legs. Grant, I said smoothly, I wasn't expecting you. His jaw tightened. I bet you weren't. He didn't sit, just stood there, staring at me as if trying to piece together how the woman he had underestimated had ended up in control. What do you want? I asked casually. His fingers curled into fists. Do you even care? I tilted my head. Not particularly, but I am curious. A bitter chuckle escaped his lips. You really did it, he murmured. You really made sure I had nothing left. I arched an eyebrow. Oh, Grant, you did that to yourself. I just let the world see it. His nostrils flared, but he didn't argue. He couldn't. Because he knew I was right. He exhaled sharply, dragging a hand through his hair. They've frozen my accounts. Investors have pulled out completely. The company, my company, doesn't exist anymore. I remained silent, watching him unravel. I've lost everything, he muttered. And you don't even care, do you? I leaned forward slightly, my voice cool and precise. No, Grant, I don't, because this, all of this, was inevitable. His head snapped up, eyes burning with something between anger and desperation. You built your life on using people, I continued, on stepping over them, believing you were untouchable. But you weren't. No one is. And now you're finally feeling what it's like to be powerless. He swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. I need help, he admitted quietly. The words hung in the air, heavy and desperate. I smiled. And you think I'm the one to give it to you? His lips pressed into a thin line. I don't know what else to do. A long silence stretched between us. For a moment, I let myself think back to the woman I used to be. The one who had trusted him. The one who had believed in him. The one he had thrown away without a second thought. And then, I remembered who I was now. The woman who had won. I stood up, walking around my desk until I was only a few feet away from him. You're going to walk out of here, I said calmly. He stiffened. And then what? I gave a slow, satisfied smile. That's not my problem, Grant. His breath hitched. And that was the moment he knew. There would be no redemption, no saving grace, no second chances. Not from me. I watched as his hands clenched into fists, his jaw tight with frustration. He wanted to fight, to argue, to convince me that he deserved another shot. But he didn't. And I didn't have anything left to say. I turned away, walking back to my desk as if he was already gone. Behind me, he let out a slow, defeated breath. And then, without another word, Grant Lawson walked out of my office. For the last time, the future without him. The days passed. The headlines shifted. Soon Grant's name was nothing more than a footnote in business scandals. His reputation was ruined, his power gone. He tried to salvage what little he had left, but without influence, without money, without the backing of those who once followed him blindly. He was no one. And me? I thrived. I rebuilt the company he had stolen from me. I expanded, grew, and solidified my place in an industry that once dismissed me. I didn't just recover. I became more powerful than ever before. One night, as I stood on the balcony of my estate overlooking the city skyline, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I didn't need to check. I already knew who it was. Grant. A final, desperate attempt to reach out. I let the phone ring. Then, with a slow smile, I blocked the number. Because the past, it was exactly where it needed to be. And I was already living my best revenge.